Out of District 1, very few citizens come to the Board of Supervisors meeting. That's the reason I want to create a Citizens Academy in English and Spanish to train neighborhood leaders in District 1. How can they shape decisions? How can they shape their local government? Come to the Board of Supervisors and speak and get involved in making decisions. The foundation to good government is having an active citizenry. But we have to be more proactive and encouraging our communities to have a bigger say, have a greater voice. Sometimes it's hard for families because they work 2 to 3 jobs. By the time they come out of work, the Board of Supervisors meetings are not going on. So I want to bring some of those meetings to the afternoon so it's accessible to working people. Take them down to Greenfield and maybe the peninsula, other parts of the county, so that we make our government as accessible as possible.
Thank you very much.
You know, our city being transparent, I'm known for transparency, seriously. Several years ago, we started our city council meetings at 5 p.m. People saying they're starting them too early. We started at 5 p.m. Sometimes we're getting out at midnight. And one of the things that I found out as one of your electeds is that people would come to the meetings that maybe were interested in a certain particular issue. We were finding out that we were having the same people, but yet we were going longer. Transparency is not necessarily about meetings. It's more about if the people are asking you for something, we just need to provide it. I went through an issue, and I want to use Jeff Mitchell as an example. I was at a meeting, a very transparent meeting, where we came out of there and we were sued for $400,000. I was so amazed because I found out about it in the newspaper. And then I went and spoke to the city manager, the city attorney, and then Mr. Columnist over here, he decided to start writing half-truths instead of coming to me and really having that dialogue and the truth. I was willing to go to court on it. But the city attorney had told me, you know what, this case may cost us over $1 million. I said, I didn't do anything wrong. I had to recuse myself from the vote, which I wanted to vote, but I couldn't because I was not allowed to. And Mr. Jeff Mitchell started writing other things. He wouldn't let it go. When he called Tony Barrera, no, because he would have to have a mature conversation with me, an honest conversation. And I want to tell you something. In the 8 years I've been here elected, I take ethics, I take transparency, and I take honesty very seriously. If I start lying to you, I don't belong there. But one of the things that's very important, sometimes if the media wants us to be transparent, they need to pick up the phone, hey, Barrera, sit down, let's have coffee, and let's talk the truth. Because I want to tell you, this woman took $400,000 when she shouldn't have. Then they found out she had sued the city 3 other times.
Okay, that's it. I would like to remind the council, he was going to get off scot-free all night without me asking a question about Elizabeth Martinez. But now that he opened the door, you were so close.
Listen to Modelo.
Anyway, I think we're up with Luis. You were so close, dude. So close.
You know, Mr. Assembly Member Luis Alejo, you know why you can't see me? You know why you can't find me? I'm 30 years older than you, and I'm one of the fastest and most effective precinct walkers ever in the history of Monterey County. And if you haven't, you should have consulted the case for dinner, because he would agree with me. All right, sir? But when I saw you walking on Sanborn, on the right-of-ways with your yard signs, you know what? I wanted to call for the biggest parade in the world, because I see our assembly member is firing me on the streets. That's great. But in terms of transparency, those occurred on my watch as one county supervisor. And a lot of those, most of those, were all performance evaluations, because we had some administrators that we started to hold them, not for the first time, we continued to hold them accountable. That was not a lawsuit. That was a real thorough, deep investigation by the district attorney's office. And 2 of them came into my office within 2 hours, and we got cleared. We got cleared because we were doing what we were supposed to do. Is when you hold people accountable and tell them whether they're doing a good job or not, or they're failing, or you're on the verge of telling them, you know what, it's time to pack up and leave. You can't do that in open session. And I'll be the first the voting rights 10 years ago, when the Board of Supervisors was contemplating on going to the Department of Justice to lower the standards of criteria on the voting rights. In closed session, I banged my fist on the table, and if you don't stop this, I'm going to call this whole community. And it happened. We had the forums, we had a committee. That voting rights attorney never went to Washington. Thank you.
All right. So I want to take a second here, remind you all that we're pretty much not going to stop and go right through this. So if you need to excuse yourself, the restrooms are across the lobby. There's also cookies and water over on the side, so feel free just to get up and get it. We're going to be quite informal here. So we are on to our next questioner, and that's Jim Johnson from the Herald.
The state's Sustainable Groundwater Management Act has been described as representing a paradigm shift in the way the state manages its groundwater resources. Nowhere perhaps is that more true than the Salinas Valley. Mandates that by the year 2040, that the Salinas, the overdrafted basin be balanced. In other words, no more water taken out than is being put back in. That's a major shift, obviously. Are you satisfied with the progress being made on the formation of the Groundwater Sustainability Agency? And you think they're going to beat the deadline next summer? What should be the makeup of that agency? And what role should the county and water resources agency play?
Let's go with Councilman Barrera.
You know, they are already working on that. One of the biggest problems that we've had with people in this profession taking care of our water situation, like last night, Dr. Baumann came before the city council and discussed to us the seriousness of this drought, where we're at. But the biggest problem that we've been having is governments have been fighting each other. And you know, the environmentalists, the farmers, people in agriculture, instead of coming together and figuring it out on how we're going to work together in order to do it, because we do have a deadline next year. Well, I believe we're going to do it because they finally figured it out. You know what? If we don't get together and start cleaning the Salinas reservoir, the river, we're going to find ourselves in a mess here. And there are farmers, environmentalists, already Land Watch is coming on board with agriculture, something that has never been done before. One of the things that you will find out on these critical issues with water is that they always end up in litigation. People start suing each other, and that's where we start getting into the problem of trying to resolve the issue. Right now, Lake Nacimiento, Lake San Antonio is very low, and as we're learning, we're needing to figure out a way how we can sustain the water that we already have by building some form of tunnel that's going to connect both lakes. But again, a very complicated issue. We had the best people that can work on this critical issue. But the thing is to be able to create the partnerships, how to work together. That's the most important thing.
I want to tell the incumbent, first of all, that just because you say something doesn't make it true, and just because you yell it to the top of your lungs doesn't make it true. I've always seen it. Very my volunteers. All these volunteers have been walking for months now, since early January, and you haven't seen him out there not once. But to your question, the Sustainable Groundwater Management Plan was the first time it's been done in California, and every groundwater basin throughout the state of California now has to come up with a plan of how to have sustainability. And the drought taught us, in the legislature and citizens throughout the state, that it was very much needed. Because when you're overdrafting, when you're pumping more than what you have, it contributes to saltwater intrusion, it contributes to higher levels of nitrates in people's water. That's why we have those issues in San Ardo and previously in San Gerardo, outside of Gonzales. But now we're moving to have a comprehensive solution, bringing stakeholders together, state agencies, elected officials, cities, farmers, and trying to come up with a sustainable groundwater plan for the Salinas Valley. And actually, Monterey County won the first to hire a facilitator and start bringing people together. But it has to be comprehensive. It means that we have to come up with solutions such as in the Salinas River, where the vegetation and the clogging contributes to potential flooding that's damaging to the Salinas Valley. all the vegetation ends up wasting excess water that we could otherwise be saving. But also, that's why I moved to help clean up the Salinas River. I got $3.6 million to help clean up and remove the Rundo after Bob Anton and other group of farmers asked me to help and get the first permits. And we created a roadmap of how to get there. And now I'm working on the biggest water storage project in the Salinas Valley. The Interlake Tunnel project between Lake Nacimiento and San Antonio. It would help us store more water, reach out the groundwater basin, deal with flood management, saltwater intrusion, and extra flows for protected species like the still in the Salinas River as well.
Thank you.
You know, this forum should have been about precinct walking, right? You know, if you haven't figured out, and maybe you have, but I think you're making up everything you are. That's fine with me, and I'll agree with you if you want to go ahead and make it up. Go ahead and make it up, all right? I don't disrespect your precinct walkers and volunteers like you do me and my supporters in this community, okay? We have a strategy when we walk, where we walk. You guys are walking. If you think I haven't done anything, go check down at the election department, register 300 signatures in lieu, all right? In lieu of filing fee. 1/3 of them, 100, has my signature on it, sir. And, but I do want to thank you. We went to your office in Sacramento under AB 155, and we asked you, and you took it upon it. And the first thing you did the honorable thing, project led your community. So I'm very thankful, and I want to thank you for doing that. And the 12 million didn't come, but maybe the 25 million under 1575, whatever it is. But I think this is going to be a very complicated. We're just starting. We've got a long ways to go because there's a lot of interest. I didn't realize how thick politically water was when it turns into chocolate. You got the environmentalists, you got farmers, property owners that if you infringe on property rights, I believe in supporting the act in the plan. It's going to take a little ways to get to, and I believe we can do so.
Okay. I believe we are now at the Susan.
What is your thoughts on immigration, specifically what are the things to be done in order to assist undocumented students navigate through college?
How about Tony?
You know, I think one of the things that's happening right now with the DREAM Act, a lot of students are getting attention. I think where I was a little bit disappointed when, as much as I support him and I still do, President Obama, when he had the opportunity to be able to resolve that issue, he chose to prioritize healthcare instead of immigration. I think one of the issues here, I'm originally from Mexico, and a lot of times people that have come from Mexico, and it's been documented that people that come from other countries come here to work. But one of the things, the problems now that we have the children that have grown into young adults that are now wanting to go to a university, they're finding themselves in a serious situation. What we need to do is figure out how, as we use the word comprehensive, how to get Washington, D.C. to really pay attention to that and resolve this issue. Because you know what? These young people that want to go to universities are going to make this country even bigger and better. And the problem is now that we're finding out also the parents that are here, their life is here. Some of them have even bought homes. You go into our fields right now in our $9 billion industry. A big majority of our workers are undocumented. But yet look at the way they live. A lot of them live in District 1, they live in poverty. And one of the things that we have to do as an industry, whether it's government, whether it's agriculture, or this $9 billion industry that we highly discuss, they need to figure out a way how to help us with this. Because these young people deserve a better life, and it wasn't their fault of what happened. But we keep hearing about comprehensive immigration, and we get stuck there. And a lot of times what happens Instead of really figuring out how to resolve the issue, it gets very political. But I think we can do it.
Okay.
Luis, thank you so much. Well, I've been very proud to be able to come back to my community and be able to tell them what I have done to improve the lives of immigrants and the dreamers here in the state of California. The first thing I did when I came to Sacramento, I was the principal co-author of the California Dream Act to allow 8540 students and dreamers to be able to qualify for Cal grants so they can realize their college dreams and aspirations, just like I did. I also was the author of the driver's license bill, 8060, where in the first year alone, 605,000 immigrants lawfully obtained a driver's license. They could go to work, take their kids to school in the morning, go to church on a Sunday, or go eat at a local restaurant. But that still wasn't enough. I'm one of the few elected officials from the Monterey Bay that actually went on delegation to Washington. I went with the Silicon Valley Leadership Group, the Western Growers, the Strawberry Commission, to push for comprehensive immigration reform. And we met with the key Republican leaders, Kevin McCarthy, Joe Lysa, David Valadao, all some of the key people that are key votes to move comprehensive immigration forward. But still that wasn't enough. I authored legislation last year in the Senate Appropriations Committee to create the first ever and the most innovative work permit program for residents that are already here in California. If they're adopting so they can work lawfully, pay taxes, support their own families. If we're able to accomplish this through an agreement with the U.S. Department of Justice and the Department of Homeland Security, California will be the first to do a pilot program to issue work permits to agricultural workers in the state of California. I'm doing my part, but I know it's a big issue. This is one of the big issues on the mind of our kids. And lastly, there's a case pending before the U.S. Supreme Court on whether the new 2.0 DACA and DAPA for their parents is constitutional. The arguments were made. I signed on as an author of an amicus brief that was submitted to the U.S. Supreme Court, and now we're going to get a decision at the end of June. There's 1.5 million residents here in California that could benefit from DAPA and DACA, and I hope that the Supreme Court does the right thing and allows that program to move forward.
Mr. Assembly Member, you can't talk out of both sides of your mouth. You may be able to do that in Sacramento and get away with it because we can't see. But if you get elected as county supervisor, you're not going to have any place to run. You know? What he doesn't tell you is 4 years ago, he voted against the United Farm Workers, campesinos, against the mediation bill. Right now, he's refusing to take a position on the farm worker overtime bill. He's having farm workers on their knees, walking neighborhoods when they should be taking care, being overworked, underpaid, taking care of their kids. You're not, maybe I should wish that you get elected as county supervisor. I will guarantee you ain't going to have no place to run like the halls of Sacramento. Thank you very much.
Okay. So next up is Adriana Ford.
Okay.
Oh, I might add, if you've noticed, I'm not giving them extra time to rebut because if they're going to eat up their own time, just kind of snarling with each other, I think if they're going to eat up their own time, that's up to them. So we do have a few more questions to ask before we pack it in tonight. We appreciate your patience. It's been a good session so far, and now we are going to Adriana further.
Okay, this is a question for the three of you. What do you think supervisors should do to expand health services for undocumented residents? My understanding there was a pilot project from the Monterey County supervisors that was dealing with the situation. What do you think needs to be done in the future?
Tony, why don't you take that one?
We're already working on that issue, but it's very difficult for the simple fact right now, if an undocumented has health needs, the hospital has to take care of them. That's a given. One of the things that we've dealt with personally is I've dealt with single mothers that take their little children and sometimes they run into an issue at the emergency or something, and I've been called a few times, and we're able to get health care for them. Again, it goes back to the governance. You know, this is not just on the county level. It has to come from Sacramento as well. And then we have to get the hand from the federal government. Very difficult issue, but people in Monterey County are getting health care right now. There's a lot of moms that are in need. As a matter of fact, I just took a young man a month and a half ago. He got shot in the hand and the bullet was stayed in there, and they gave him because he's undocumented, they gave him an appointment for a month and a half later. Well, I was called by one of the neighbors that knows me, so while I was walking the precincts, I was literally there. So one of the things that happened when we went to the emergency, they were able to give him health care. They didn't see him right there that day, but in 3 days, he got the medical attention he needed. And as a matter of fact, they took the bullet out. I checked in with his mother. He's undocumented. So these are critical issues, and sometimes as elected officials, we have to look at each case by case and assist with where we can. But we do need help from the state. We need help from the federal government. We can only do what we can here to be able to assist them. But again, I want to reiterate, undocumented people are getting health care and not being able to hospital.
Okay, why don't we have Luis take the answer? Thank you. Sometimes I feel bad for the incumbent because he didn't do his research properly. You know, when he brought these two bills that he talked about, obviously he didn't read the bills, nor did he know what they're about. The bill about mediation was a bill that wanted to strip farm workers from having the ability to ratify their contract. Every other union, SCIU, UCW, when they negotiate a tentative agreement, it has to go back to the membership to say whether they agree or not. Often farm workers don't have a voice on a lot of issues, but when you also are stripped from not having the voice and ratifying your own contract, I had some reservations and I expressed it, and I'm willing to say the same today. Also on the overtime bill, it's easy for these candidates to say it, because they're not making a decision. I'm the person who's making a decision when this bill comes before the State Assembly in the next few weeks. And I laid a very fair process. I'm listening to all sides, but I did express a concern. We recently raised the minimum wage to $15, the highest in the nation. And these other ideas are good, but when you all come at the same time, they might have unintended consequences, and that's why I have to thoroughly analyze and hear from everyone, what could that possible impact be? But we're doing legislation that hasn't been done anywhere else in the country, including that $15 minimum wage. On this question of health insurance for the undocumented, that's where we're also leading and doing things that no other state is doing. I'm the chairman of the powerful Latino Legislative Caucus. We've got 22 members, 5 senators, 17 assembly members. That includes the first Latino president of the Senate and the Latino speaker of the Assembly. First time that's happened in California history. But as chairman of the caucus, we led the first effort that was ever accomplished to approve in our budget $40 million so that we cover all children, regardless of their immigration status. So that means starting this month, 170,000 kids are now going to be covered through expanded Medi-Cal. That is something that I'm very proud of, and no other state has ever done, but we're working year after year to make sure all our families are included, and we're going to do more in future years as well.
Okay.
You know, Mr. Alejo, you're going to one that's going to have to live on your conscience forever for life in terms of what you don't do for farm workers. Don't believe a single word I'm telling you. Just talk to the farm workers, talk to the UFW, okay? And the burden is in the pudding, whatever they call that, to see where you stand over time. He talks great about the minimum wage, but the first bill that came into effect 2 or 3 years ago, I'm not making this up. This is the labor's union in Sacramento giving me that information. They failed to stand up to support that the first time around. But in terms of healthcare, I'm a former medical social worker at the Tibet Medical Center, 14 years over there, full time, dealing with the homelessness, dealing with the documents, so I know firsthand in terms of servicing them. It's more of a social work nature works in me as a county supervisor, because I know the suffering, okay? And COPA, Community Alliance for Political Action, Center for Community Advocacy, didn't ask me to go to the Alisal Center for the Fine Arts. The Teamsters Local 890 didn't call upon me and Supervisor Salinas by accident, okay? No disrespect, Councilman Barrera, there's a lot of folks, whether you're documented or undocumented, only because I chair the Health and Human Services for the Board of Supervisors and also budget. There's a lot of folks that are still not having access for a variety of reasons because they don't have health insurance. It's not in the hundreds, it's in the thousands. And I want to hear, and other supervisors, I can't speak for them, I want to hear, my office wants to hear when folks do not get access.
Okay.
And we're expanding our health department clinics in Marina and Avisar this coming year. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, before we move on, I want to just hand out some props to my colleague Roberta for handling our catering. Thanks for the suit, we appreciate that. And I'd also like to thank my friend Val Mendoza and his crew from Millennium High who is videotaping tonight's session. So thanks guys, we appreciate it. Okay, next we're going to go through a round of candidate-specific questions, and Chelsea's going to start us off. We'll finish, as soon as we get through the first three, then we'll go to the last round for the evening.
So this question is for Mr. Alejo. According to your submitted state form 460, you accepted a donation of $2,500 as recently as April 23rd from Encore Capital Group for your Alejo for Senate 2018 campaign. It appears clear that you want to replace Senator Pineda when he turns out. Why should the voters of District 1 support you now if you could potentially only serve half of the 4-year supervisor term?
Thank you for the question. We've had about 5 or 6 of these forums already, and I've answered each one this way. I'm committed only to run for county supervisor, and in fact, in District 1, the people of District 1 have voted for me 6 times in the last 6 years. It was a primary and general election, and they voted with me in this district with over 80% of the vote. In 2012, the last presidential, it was over 85% of the vote, overwhelmingly, because I delivered for this district. I've done more in my 6 years in Assembly for the family of District 1 than the incumbent has done in 16 years for the people of District 1. And the reason, I also have to make clear, the reason that there's a Senate account is that when I'm fundraising, when I finish my last Assembly campaign, I can no longer fundraise in that committee. So what everyone usually does is open a Senate account and then you're able to fundraise in 2015 and 2016. But I made a commitment that I'm closing down that account. All that fundraising I've done in that committee is going to be transferred to my supervisor account, and I'm only going to run for county supervisor. I tell people that when I was finishing my term, people encouraged me to seek out a gubernatorial appointment. They asked me to run for Congress. They asked me to run for a statewide position. They asked me to run for Senate, a lot of things. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to come back to county government and be able to finish some of the work I started in Sacramento and fulfill it as a county board of supervisor, including the Interlake Tunnel project, where I'm fighting for $25 million to financially get that project off the ground, even though it's been talked about since the 1970s. I want to deal with homelessness because my incumbent hasn't done anything for our homeless residents in 16 years. And I also want to carry out my new redevelopment till 82 to bring jobs and clean up blight and build affordable housing here in Salinas. That's what I'm committed to. But what I always say is that when you see the situation in District 1, where the homicide rate was 40 last year, most in District 1, the poverty has gone up, the homelessness has gone up, the people want to change. And as I'm walking door to door, people are excited because they know they deserve better, and they're going to get better with me as the next supervisor.
Okay. All right, so Sarah, we're going to ask a specific question, and she's going to ask it now.
This question is for Supervisor Armenta, specifically surrounding development. We've seen a number of contested projects that were passed 3-2. For Rainy Ranch comes to mind on Highway 68, currently being litigated. Whispering Oaks is a project that passed 4-1, and eventually the Board of Supervisors caved in under pressure from voters who were proposing a referendum to reverse that project and did so. What kind of assurance can you provide to the county as a whole, beyond this district as well, that you are looking out for environmental issues, for open space, for traffic concerns, particularly on the Highway 68 corridor, that, these contested, controversial projects, will you continue to say yes to most projects, even if they have some outstanding concerns.
In almost 16 years, that anybody that has a small or medium or major development, a good example of that is a 10-year general plan. I don't care if you support me or don't support me in terms of a developer, all right? I'm about being fair and open. That if you can mitigate a project, that we have to continue to find ways, because we talked about it earlier, finding jobs, finding more transportation opportunities. And you know, most folks don't know this. In the middle of the general plan, I was in Washington, D.C., a land use attorney that is supporting Mr. Alejo, and a grower stopped me in Smith and wanted me to adopt their plan in the middle of the process. In the ultimate end, they wanted me to make the motion, make the second, and I made a commitment to all sides to have an open and transparent and democratic process. My fundraising dropped a lot because of that. So I'm not committed. People have tried to want to say the details on an informal basis or formal basis, more on a private basis. They try to compromise you. They think by filling up their coffers, they own you. I've proven that is not the case. Thank you.
Jim Johnson's going to do our last specific question, and that's going to go to Tony Barrera.
All right, well, before I go to Tony, and I have a question for you, but I'd like to ask Mr. Alejo, will you commit to completing your first term at least as county supervisor if you're elected?
Yes.
And Tony, if you could you describe the top 2 or 3 things that you've accomplished as the Salinas City Council member?
One of the things that has been accomplished is we have a police officer position right now that's designated for Costa Plaza. I've been putting pressure on Chief McMillan, who I have to work with together. We have enough money right now to hire 20 police officers. But that Costa Plaza was one of the first issues that I worked with. And finally, as soon as the person is designated, they will be there. So that's one. The other thing is I've been working with the seniors, 75 seniors in the Firehouse Recreation Center that for 6 years they've been wanting a senior center for themselves during the day. Right now they can only be there for 4 hours. Well, starting next month, they're going to be able to be there as long as they want throughout the day. And then after school, the young people that are needing a teen lounge, they're going to be able to use the second story. And that was a big deal because we have about 75 to 100 active senior citizens there. The other thing is that I'm very proud of, I've been going to the county jail where literally we're able to have one-on-one discussions with incarcerated fathers that hopefully we were able to get them into some type of program. And again, it's long-term, very difficult, but District 1 is one of the highest density districts. We have a lot of social issues. We have a lot of programs that require structure, and a lot of people are having some serious problems. But then we have a hard-working population. But the thing is, the majority of our people that work in the fields, they make about $14,000 or $15,000 a year. And those are the people that are living in garages, not because they won't want a better life, but because they can't afford it.
Thank you. All right, Suzanne Vasquez, you have the honor of bringing it all home tonight. Yeah, she'll have our last section for the entire panel. Suzanne?
Yes. Do you support the sales, the distribution, and the cultivation of medical marijuana? Yes, or why not?
Fernando, why don't you take that one?
The Board of Supervisors is going to hear the ordinance supposedly in July. And I we still not have and have not received a complete report. Obviously, folks want to do dispensary, they want to do cultivation. I believe in economic development. I believe in taking people, for the most part, that have a medical need for marijuana. My job as a county supervisor, or any county supervisor, is to be able to look at the pros and cons, to make sure that we have the law enforcement, the accountability tied up, and trying to solve, and hopefully they're working on a strategy, because some of you may know or may not know, this is a cash-only business. So we got to figure out how to hold the deposits of that cash accountable through some source, and I believe they're working on it. And I'm glad that's a good question, because each one of you, if you have it, you probably need to weigh in, and you probably weigh in with some of the cities that you live in, even if you have provinces in the South. So I don't want a new system, I want an accountable system, and I don't want no loose loopholes, because there's going to be some unintended consequences, and who's going to suffer? Our community's going to suffer. So I believe in taking care of business, and there's a purpose for doing that, and the social part may just decide all that with us at the state level. Thank you.
Okay, Luis? Well, as everyone knows, several years ago, the voters of California, by ballot initiative, approved the use of medical marijuana in our state. But despite that taking place several years ago, the legislature had never enacted to implement a comprehensive set of regulations and rules so that we actually have proper transparency, regulation, and enforcement. We did that for the first time last year, went into effect, and now that is what is being implemented. But it allows or encourages local governments to create their own ordinances, gives them that local flexibility. At the same time, include law enforcement, have transparency, but also have the ability to tax cannabis here. Currently, as we're speaking, there's a lot of investment going on in Monterey County. A lot of the nurseries are being bought up. So that's where the state is moving. But when we talk about this issue, I know a lot of residents have concerns. And certainly, it's not my choice, it's not something I use, but those who need it for medical reasons, that's what the law allowed. Whether you're a cancer patient or you have other medical needs, you have that ability. So that's why this industry is growing. But certainly, if Monterey County and local cities are able to tax that anywhere from 10 to 15%, then that's going to mean millions of dollars coming into county government and local city governments. And what I would say, we should have a nexus to use those resources. These will be new resources that we could be doing to address public safety issues. All the things I talked about earlier, more rec centers and parks and community gardens and some of the most neediest areas, the neighborhood services, to build a relationship. That's that additional money we could use and invest. Because you know that Monterey County is facing a $16 million deficit this year. So if we get additional money, we should use it smartly and put it where we need it the most, where it's going to make the greatest difference. Mental health services, some of that money should go to help the poor and the homeless as well, use it for housing issues. But I think it's a great opportunity, but we have to use it wisely and make sure that we address concerns from our local communities in the process.
Okay. Last up on race, Councilmember.
Yes, I support it. You know, one of the exciting things that's happening right now is that there's a lot of local investment. 7 months ago, I met with 30 investors locally from Monterey County. As a matter of fact, right now in Moss Landing, they have drivers that are taking medicinal cannabis to cancer patients throughout, not only Monterey County, but Santa Cruz and San Benito as well. Where I'm excited about this is I went to a place down here in South County right before Chular. There was 15 greenhouses that at one time were growing carnations and poinsettias, and now they're going to be growing greens, green gold. One of the things I told these investors, we have to train the campesinos that are working those fields right now. You know what they said? You have our word. Those people, those campesinos that are making very little wages are going to be able to be trained, and they live here, where they will be able to make $20 to $40 an hour. And the reason I found that out, I went and spoke to several of the people that work in Moss Landing right now as we speak. Several of those young people are putting themselves through universities, working in the medicinal cannabis. where I'm having a difficult time because we were running out of time. If we didn't get on it right now as a local government, the state was going to take over and they were going to start taxing it and we would lose out. So with this tax base, we are going to be able to create even more programs for our young people, our senior centers, and then our veterans as well. There's a lot of things that could be done, but remember, with every good, people try to screw it up. Is that a bad word, screw it up? Some people try to do a lot of bad things. So one of the things that we want to do is we want to be able to control it, be able to generate revenue, but the campesinos are going to be able to rise as well because they're going to be getting a living wage.
Thank you very much. Okay, so before we wrap up with closing statements, I want to take a moment to thank our friends here at CUSMB at City Center Salinas. You guys have all been great. Clay, Dr. Rochelle, we appreciate your help and assistance in producing tonight's show. And I'd also like to thank again our question panel, starting with Mark Carbonero, Sarah Rubin, Jim Johnson, Susanna Vasquez, Chelsea Adamy, and of course Adriana Frederick. So you guys did a great job tonight. And as we earlier picked out of a hat, we will have the speaking order of Assembly Member Alejo, Supervisor Armenta, and Councilman Barrera in that order. So we'll start with 1 minute closing statements from Luis Alejo.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for sharing part of your evening. Glad you all came out to hear out our ideas. I started planning to run for this seat in 2012 when the incumbent told me, and I think he told Tony as well, that he wasn't running for office anymore. His heart's not in it. And when I asked people, name one thing that was his idea, that he led and implemented from beginning to end, not that staff put in front of him, people can't mention a single thing in 16 years. I, on the other hand, have a reputation of being a problem solver. I work across party lines. Last year, the California League of Cities named me Legislator of the Year for my work getting the most bills signed out of any legislator. Here locally, I've been proud to win a broad coalition of support. Today, I'm proud to announce that just today, I got the endorsement of the Monterey County Deputy Sheriff's Association and the Monterey County Medical Society, the doctors that work at Natividad Hospital. I also got the support of all the city and county employees, Natividad employees. Through SCIU, I walked away with 95% of the vote. I walked away with 78% of the unions that are part of the Monterey Bay Central Labor Council. And I even got the support of the realtors and some of our top farmers as well. I'm here to ask for your support. Thank you for inviting me tonight. Muchas gracias.
Next up for his 1 minute closing speech is Supervisor Fernando Armenta.
Okay, here it is. Show me the suffering of the most miserable so I may know my people's plight. Free me to pray for others, for you are present in every person. Help me to take responsibility for my own life so that I can be free at last. Grant me courage to serve others, for in service there is true life. Give me honesty and patience so that the Spirit will be alive among us. Let the Spirit flourish and grow so that we will never tire of the struggle. Let us remember those who have died for justice, for they have given us life. Help us love even those that hate us, so we can change the world. Amen. Cesar Estrada Chavez. Thank you.
Okay. Well, that brings us to a close now. I'd like to thank our three candidates.
Give Tony again?
Gosh, we came so close, Tony. And Tony Barrera for a closing.
My mother, before I got here, she said she supports me, but she can't vote for me, but she loves me. You know, Mayor Joe Gunther and Councilmember Steve Shane, the reason they endorsed me, because we build bridges in Salinas. There's 6 districts and we learn to work together. Neighborhood meetings throughout. You can have any council member go out throughout the city. When I first came in as a council member, people were very territorial like gang members. What are you doing across the street from in my district? Or you know what? You can go to anybody's district and create neighborhood. One of the things that's important is partnerships. As I'm speaking to you right now, the Monterey County government and the city of Salinas government just did a land swap. There's going to be a new health clinic right across the street from Healy Mortuary in District 1, that's going to deal with low-income people. And the land swap in District 1 was going to be a 3-story police community center as we speak. So that's in the making, a $95 million project. Thanks to the collaborative effort. Muchas gracias.
Okay, that was all. So I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I'd like to thank our 3 candidates and make sure you vote. My name is Jeff Mitchell, and we'll see you next time.
Hurry, let's go walking.